right, so the first step in terms of buying or selling your property, in Jamaica, it doesn't really matter where you are, right? You could be here in the UK, you could be anywhere in the world, or you could be indeed be in Jamaica. The process is quite very much the same. You book a consultancy with someone like myself, which is absolutely free. I mean, I had someone the other day said, "Oh, I realize it's called a consultancy. Do I have to pay?" And I said, "No. It's called a consultancy because it's a professional conversation, right? Right. So we'll have that talk. I will discuss the property size, discuss the ownership structure. In terms of some properties are owned by multiple people, right? So we'd have to make sure that everyone is on board. Once we have confirmed the ownership, once we have confirmed the location and all of that of the property, the next thing we do is that we look at price. Most people that comes to me, to be honest, they've already got a price in mind. They would have done some research or they would have had a valuation, so they know, okay, I would like to sell for $30 million or $100 million Jamaican, or it could be listed in US dollar. You list it in the currency of your choice. If they do not, or sometimes even if they do, there might be room for further conversation. I might think, well, you might be able to get a bit more for that property, or this property is overpriced. We can list it at that, but it's gonna sit on the market for quite long, and sometimes even indefinitely. I think it will be better priced at this point. Now, if they do not have a price in mind, they might say, "Look, Kevin, I would like to sell it, but I do not have any idea as to what to sell it for." Normally in this situation, people get a valuation. But valuations in Jamaica can be very costly, right? And sometimes, even though they are selling, some people do not have the cash up front to do it, or they do not want to. Or they might think that's just going to slow down the process. That's an extra professional that they have got to engage with, so no thank you. So they will resort to what we call a professional opinion. So someone like me who has got the knowledge of the market will do an assessment, and we'll look at what similar properties have sold for, look at where the market is, look at, everything as it pertains to the property. Right, once we have given you that price guide, and it's a guide as opposed to a formal valuation, person may agree and say, "Okay, let's just start that." We'll agree on that. Then I will send that person, usually by email, regardless of where they are, the listing forms. They will then complete the listing forms, send that back to me along with the supporting documents. Right? Supporting document, we have to establish ownership. We have to make sure that the person has got the right to sell, right? Because your name has to be on the title. And if there are multiple people who are on the title, they all have to consent to the sale. That should be quite obvious. Some people, strangely enough, they find that's strange. It's my property, but I only put my daughter's name on it because of inheritance purpose. I'm like, well, now we need to get consent from your daughter because she's on it as well. Once I've got that, that is reviewed, that is then sent to compliance in Jamaica, that is checked over, everything is approved, then we can have it listed. Now, listing with a realtor in Jamaica, your property is listed on what we call the MLS, or the multiple listing service, which is a service that is utilized in both America, I think it's in Canada as well, yes, and in Jamaica and a few other places. That gives your property global reach. For example, it would mean that that property becomes visible on the website of every single realtor in Jamaica. So all realtors have now got access to your property, so they could then direct traffic to me, who is your realtor, to say, "Okay, I've got a client who is interested in your property," etc., etc., etc. It means that the chance of you selling your property and selling it within a reasonable period of time is quite high, provided that the pricing has been done correctly and the staging has been done correctly, etc. Now, the next step is to find a buyer. Generally, what happens is that a buyer will contact me, a potential buyer, not a buyer yet, it's just making contact. Potential buyer will contact me and say, okay, I've got an interest in that property. The first thing I want to do before I take an offer is just to make sure that that is a serious contender. A, that the person really wants to buy and is not just kicking tires, as it were. So I would ask for either a a pre-approval, or alternatively I'll ask for a bank statement showing that you've got the cash to buy. As the vendor, as the seller, this is a very good service for you. It means that you don't have people wasting your time tying up the property sometime in a sale, only to find out 3, 4, 5 months later that actually I can't afford it. So that is very good, and is actually now a requirement by the Realtors Association of Jamaica that we check to make sure that whoever is buying that property and is going to tie that property up can actually afford it. Once that is done, and I know it is now a qualified offer, I will then present the offer to the client. The client, let's say you are selling your property, so I'm talking now the vendor, will then review it, and they will have one of 3 options. So I'll give them on that form, they could decline the offer. I listed it for 50 million, you're offering me 40, that gap is way too big, I can't possibly entertain that, so no thank you. Alternatively, they could accept it, like, okay, fine, I'll take that. The third option is to what we call reject with a counter. So I'm saying you've offered 45, the property was listed at 50. Okay, I can't accept your 45, but would you consider 48? So now I am making the counter offer in order for the client, the potential buyer, to accept. If they accept it, happy days, we're now in business. I get these signed off by compliance, this signed off by both vendor and buyer alike, and then I will pass it on to the attorneys who are involved. Solicitors, attorney, for all intents and purpose, they're the same thing in this instance, right? They will now have full charge of that, and they will take the process to the end in terms of title transfer, transfer of ownership, any issues that needs to be ironed out. It will now be between the lawyers and their client, and you have now sold your property. Congratulations. So that is the selling process. So to finish this first video off, I'm going to say, if you are someone who has got a property in Jamaica and you've always thought, maybe I should sell it, it is costing me too much money, I've got to sell money to maintain it, also I am afraid that people might be eventually start squatting on it, or I might have relatives that living there who I don't really want them to be in my property much longer, so I better sell. What I'm going to ask that you make contact. There's a link below. You could contact me, and then we could arrange a conversation in which we will go through the process that I've just outlined. You could ask any personal question as it relates to your particular property, right? So these are not necessarily general, but they are more specific questions to your property. I guess I meant specific, not personal, right? Once that gets done, then we can then move forward to your sale. So, right, so to finish this video off, I want to keep it nice and short. Click on the link below and send me a contact if you would like, if you've got a property you would like to have discussed and potentially sold. Alright, stay tuned for, like I said, there'll be a lot more videos to come on various topics and with various professionals. I think the next one we are going to look at now is from the buyer's perspective, in terms of what goes in if you'd like to buy a property in Jamaica, and eventually we'll look at finance, how does that work, and I can signpost you to even some of the good financial houses and banks in Jamaica. Alright guys, thank you for your time. It was lovely speaking to you. Feel free to make contact, and see you soon.